welcome to, let's do the wrong intro. All right, I'm the Flat Rate Master, and today we're going to talk about, well, analyzing your failures. So what am I talking about? Well, let's say you have a comeback. Analyzing why you had a comeback. If it was your fault, you need to figure out why and try to prevent that. Also, when you miss something on a diagnostic. Now, this is something that I don't care how good you are, Scanner Dan or Erico, every now and then you're going to miss something on a diag. I'm not saying you don't get to the right conclusion, but you don't get there as fast as you should have because you missed something. Either you weren't understanding something, you missed a simple step, you missed a complex step, or just weren't thinking the right path you needed to take. It happens to everybody. Sometimes you skip over forgetting to check simple thing like continuity to a wire, forgetting to load test a connection to a ground or connection to battery or 12 volts, or just simple stuff like that, or way more complex, not checking relative compression on an engine that you suspect might be bad. Simple things like that. All those things happen to everybody. The important thing when that kind of stuff happens to you is look at your process. Look at what you did. So I'm going to tell a little story about something that happened to me this week that brought this story up. I had a Jeep 3.6 that I did valve covers on. It had an oil leak, pretty bad oil leak. Replaced them with new Mopar valve covers, and it came back leaking at both rear corners on those valve covers. Now, when I was removing those valve covers, I checked all the bolt tension on all the bolts to make sure I didn't tighten a bolt. I only found one bolt on the entire two valve covers that wasn't sufficiently tight, and it was not super loose. It was just, I had a little bit more to give. It wasn't leaking there. It was leaking at the rear valve cover, the last bolt at the back of the heads on both sides. Okay, rolled a gasket or something like that. No, I pulled the valve covers out. The gaskets looked good. I would have been confident reusing those gaskets. They weren't rolled. They weren't damaged. Nothing was wrong with the bolt tension on the bolts or the valve cover gaskets themselves. Still, I do not know why it was leaking at the back of those valve covers. They weren't leaking when it left, came back leaking. Hopefully, put new valve covers on it, warranted, it doesn't come back. That's the thing. I was sitting there trying to analyze why I had that comeback. Not just going, bad parts, screw it. I think it comes down to bad parts, but I was sitting there going, they're Mopar valve covers, they're not cheap Chinese. Well, it's Mopar, so they're cheap Chinese. But anyway, OEM valve covers and had leaks at the exact same spot on both valve covers. It's just kind of weird to me. So the reason I talk about that is the whole time I was doing the repair, I was looking for the reason why those valve covers were leaking. I didn't detect any wobble to them. The surface was clean. There was no debris there. I have no reason for it, so I have to chalk it up to a bad part. Do I know for sure? No. But that's what this whole video is about. Looking at something you did incorrectly and trying to figure out a correction for that problem in life in general, but especially at work. I don't want to do that job again simply because I want to do it once, do a great job at it, and be done with it. If you're not looking for solutions to problems you're having, you're never going to solve those problems. It's as simple as that. If you're a shop owner and you keep having all these comebacks because of bad parts, maybe you should look at getting better parts. Simple, correlation, but you get my point. Is if you're having a problem with something, figure out what you can do to solve it. I've gotten comments about the fact that we only use Akabono brakes or OEM in the shop. That was a huge trial and error method of eliminating almost every brake part on the planet, because we tried stuff. If we had too many comebacks because of noise complaints, we stopped using them. We kept coming back to Akabona because we had the least amount of complaints with them. We get 2019s, 2020s. Jesse, that used to work here, that now works for BMW as a salesman, he never wanted to be a tech, by the way. He brought his 2022 BMW in because the brakes are squeaking. He wanted Akabonos. We couldn't get him Akabonos. They don't have them yet. So the dealership had already warranted his brakes multiple times. They still make noise. It annoys them. Whenever you have something that doesn't go right, look at yourself, look inwards, and figure out what happened. Why did this happen? What did I not do right in the course of events to cause that comeback, or scheduling, or ticket distributions, or whatever is going on that you're having to deal with, and figure out a corrective path, because that's the way to grow as a technician and a person. Because if you're not fixing what you're doing wrong, well, you're going to be going the same way. You know, the old adage of don't learn from history, you're going to repeat it, and that's key. I mean, think about it. If I had forgotten to tighten the rear bolts on those valve covers, well, I had a good reason for it to come back, and maybe I should have done something better in my process to prevent that. Like going back and rechecking the torque on every bolt on that valve cover by hand to make sure it was properly torqued. Yeah, I did that this time. Again, they were all properly torqued, but again, double check. Because I didn't want to come back. I don't like comebacks. I hate comebacks. Really hate comebacks when they're my fault. It happens. Anybody says they don't have comebacks, they're full of it. I'm sorry. Yeah, you're full of it. I try to keep it as real as I can here on Flat Rate Master. We all have comebacks. We all have those cars that just, for whatever reason, they come back. You know, whether we forgot to do something, whether a part goes bad, whether, you know, ever since you know, we're human. So we're going to have mistakes in our lives. So the important thing is to correct the course and not repeat it. So hope this video was helpful. As always, thanks for watching. I am the Flat Rate Master.